the big story with me, Shivani Gupta, and we are getting some big breaking news as far as the extension of the lockdown is concerned. Now, according to the National Disaster Management Authority, the lockdown is to be extended till the end of May. That's right, the NDMA has directed the government and all ministries and departments to extend the lockdown vis-a-vis the COVID situation till May 31st. Our executive editor Abhishek Kapoor is joining us for more on this breaking story. Abhishek.
Well, Shivani, so now the distinction is that the lockdown has been extended to 31st of May. That's an order that has been given by the National Disaster Management Authority. Now, that's the nodal agency, the National Disaster Management Act, to oversee the pandemic. The ultimate guidelines would come from the Ministry of Home Affairs in terms of red, green, orange zones and what can be done, what cannot be done. But this letter, which has been issued by the NDMA, extending the lockdown as per its mandate, says that considering the fact that the lockdown measures need to be implemented for a further period in the country to contain the spread of COVID-19, NDMA, in exercise of its powers of Section 621 of the Disaster Management Act 2005, hereby directs the ministries, departments of the Government of India, state governments and state authorities to continue the lockdown measures up to 31st of May 2020. This is the operative part. The authority further directs the NEC, which is the National Executive Council headed by the Home Secretary, to issue modifications in the guidelines as necessary. So essentially, after this decision of the NDMA to extend the lockdown till 31st May, the NEC headed by the Home Secretary will issue the further guidelines by the MHA, and those guidelines, we are told, would be out in a while from now. Essentially, what we now know is, apart from the 7 states that had already extended the lockdown till 31st of May, now the national lockdown also has been extended till 31st of May for the next 14 days. Shivani.
Absolutely. The NDMA, with its powers directing the Government of India and the Government of States to extend the lockdown in some measure, at least till the end of May. This is till May 31st, but as we've been saying, the MHA will come out with some more guidelines as to what lockdown 4 phase is going to be like. We've already seen, Abhishek, especially during lockdown 3, a huge number of relaxations that were provided in many different zones. Before we get to know what lockdown 4 is going to be like, we can expect that there will be some modifications in those guidelines, perhaps a few more relaxations in greens or orange zones, and maybe the states would get to decide how they want to contain the red zones and the containment areas.
Well, Shivani, when the Prime Minister had made his last address, he had made it clear that the roop and rank of the lockdown 4 would be very, very different from what we have seen till now between 1, 2 and 3. So obviously he had given an ample hint. And why not? Because while the numbers are increasing, India has been successful in tapering the curve, and the bell curve is flatter. Even if it's not completely flattened, it will take some time. The numbers will continue to increase, but at the same time, economy needs to be taken care of. There is a big swathe of the country which is green, and there a lot of economic activity can be allowed, and that is what we are expecting when the guidelines come as per the instructions of the NDMA, which has said that now the Home Ministry or the NEC, which is the nodal body which creates those guidelines, should come back with the modifications between the lockdown 3.0 guidelines and the one that need to be implemented from here on for the next 14 days.
Absolutely. Not very surprising overall the decision of the NDMA, Abhishek, because several states have actually already decided to extend the lockdown. And given that we are seeing an increase of 4,000 to 5,000 new cases every day, especially targeted in some states, yes. But given that the number of cases continue to rise, and with more relaxations being allowed, more people come into contact with each other or are allowed as far as economic activities are concerned, some measure of lockdown still needs to continue.
Well, yes, 7 states, Telangana, Punjab, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Mizoram, Rajasthan, And Gujarat, by the time we speak, I think a meeting is going on to extend it in Gujarat also. 7 states had already made up their mind to extend the lockdown. This is the national lockdown now being extended by the NDMA, which means every state has to follow it. Apart from that, of course, the guidelines that have to come from the MHA in terms of what is allowed, what is not allowed, what is allowed where and what is not allowed where. So obviously, we have to wait for another half an hour, Shivani. We would be clear about the guidelines also. But what is important is that the spirit of the lockdown has to remain. And what is the spirit of the lockdown? Social distancing and making sure that you are not becoming party to spreading the contagion by keeping distance and flattening the curve, as they say, by making sure that you are practicing those safety measures in terms of putting a mask, washing your hands, so that the contagion spread is slowed and these suppression measures, as they are called, are effective. And that is the reason why the lockdown needs to stay. There was a consensus, not just at the level of scientific community and doctors, but we have seen there has been a political consensus also. Almost every chief minister who spoke in that meeting with the Prime Minister, which was a long 6-hour meeting, they said that lockdown is helping them contain the contagion, and that is why it should continue, and that is why this NDMA decision that has come and the MHA guidelines that are to follow.
Abhishek, what is your sense? There is some special travel as far as trains are concerned that have started, that has also led to its own issues, but perhaps it was important that some movement is allowed. Do you expect air travel to begin now that the NDMA has said that the national lockdown needs to extend till May 31st? Could air travel in any capacity start?
Well, Shivani, you know, so far as air travel is concerned, there is a very specific clarification that has come from the Ministry of Civil Aviation just a while back, saying that there is no question whatsoever of flights starting or booking starting till May 31st. And that was before the lockdown decision came. So which means that so far as flights are concerned, there is no question whatsoever of general air travel starting in this 14-day period of lockdown 4.0. After that, depending on what guidelines come, because MHA is the ultimate authority, NDMA has only extended the lockdown. MHA might say, just like it happened in the case of railways, that despite lockdown, the Shramik special trains were started, and then subsequently, even regular trains between commercially important towns were started in a batch of 15, twin towns, and those trains have been running to make sure that, apart from migrant labor, some easing of travel of those who were stuck, those who were having difficulties, health issues, this, that, they were allowed to travel. So that limited air travel, that depends on the Ministry of Home Affairs. But then the Ministry of Civil Aviation has clarified that so far as they are concerned, they are not starting any booking till May 31st, even before the lockdown was announced.